Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Ijoma Nwoke. I talk about relationship and everything relationship. And today we're talking about 5 things you need to know before saying I do. Yes, before committing to marriage, there are certain things that you and your spouse need to talk about. Ensure that you iron it out, you're on the same page before you can go ahead with the marriage plans, right? Yes, because these things, if they are not properly handled, it can become a stressor in the marriage tomorrow, or becomes a very huge issue in the marriage tomorrow. So it is very good to make sure you discuss these issues with your spouse and ensure that there is an agreement, that your thoughts align, your values align around these 5 things I'm going to talk about right now. Please, if you're just seeing my video for the first time, hit the subscribers button and give me a follow so you get an update on my subsequent videos when I bring them to you. Yes, today we're talking about 5 things that you and your spouse need to talk about before saying I do. Number 1 is money. You need to talk about your expenses. You need to talk about if you're in debt, if you have investment plans. You talk about who is to take on what expenses. You talk about how to share these expenses. You talk about your income. Ensure that he or she knows what your income base is like. It is very good for your spouse to have this information so that you'll be able to plan your families together. Of course, you guys are coming together as a family in partnership. Therefore, this information should be divulged. But some people feel like, why should I expose my income? Why should I tell my spouse my net worth and all of that? But it's good because it helps you to plan. Of course, there's going to be a lot of planning, a lot of budget and all of that. So you need to know what you're earning. You need to know your expenses. You need to know if your partner is in debt. If you're owing anybody, you should let them know. If you're a chronic debtor, expose these things. If you're an investment-minded person, let them know. If you have plans of saving for one project or the other, these are certain things, little things that you need to discuss. And of course, who should take whatever expenses. Because marriage is work, and a lot of expenses goes into planning and organizing and all of that, both the children, education and all of that. So ensure you talk about your finance. Okay, ensure you talk about your finance. The second thing to talk about is parenthood. Yes, parenting is a lot of job, so you have to talk about how you're going to share roles in parenting your children, how many kids you're willing to have. Okay, because if your spouse is one that likes to have a lot of kids and maybe you just want 1 or 2, you see it's going to be a problem tomorrow. So ensure that you discuss this. I want to have 5 kids, I want to have 2 kids, and you guys agree. Because maybe you want to have 2 or 1, and at the end of the day your spouse needs like 5, and then they may end up saying, okay, I need another wife since you are not willing to give me up to 2 or 3 kids. Maybe the person is somebody who is polygamous. Okay, he likes a large family. So talk about this parenting, what role, who is to play what role, both in the education of your children, both in disciplining and all of that. Okay, ensure you guys are on the same page. The next thing to talk about is location. Where do you want to live? If you guys are separated by distance, maybe this person lives abroad, this person lives in another country, now you're coming together to marry. Are you going to maintain it that way, or who is to come over to which country? So you talk about location, where the family is going to base. Okay, if you want to live in a certain country, maybe you want to join your spouse, or you want your spouse to come over, also consider their career and what their job and all of that. Are you willing to leave your zone, your comfort zone? Are you willing to leave your career to make that movement? Ensure that you talk about these things. Or maybe your spouse is the one who will be moving down to you or traveling to your own location. Agree on what location you want to live is very important, especially if you guys are not living in the same city, in the same country. So you have to talk about these things. Number 4, talk about your values and principles. Yes, Ensure you talk about values and principles. Compatibility should be the foundation of your relationship. Now, when it comes to do with your values, you have to share certain values for you to agree and come together in marriage. Because if your values do not align, then there's going to be a problem in the marriage tomorrow. But when you guys agree, you share the same value, the same principle, you're compatible spiritually, physically, financially, okay, there's an alignment, then there's a more than 50% possibility or 80% possibility that marriage is gonna work. But if your values do not align, okay, if you don't share the same principle, maybe in family, I like monogamy, you like polygamy, you see, it doesn't align, okay? Yes, if I'm a Christian and maybe you are a traditionalist and we do not agree, it means that one person has to compromise. And if there's no compromise, marriage won't work. So you ensure that even if your values do not align, but you are willing to compromise. So if you're not willing to compromise, then it means that you guys are not going to work. The marriage is not going to work. So that is why you have to share your values, your belief system, your culture, ensure that all of these things align. Educationally, do you want to advance in your educational career? Do you want to choose a certain career path? Okay, you have to talk about these things. Okay, what is your value when it has to do with parenting? What is your value when it has to do with religion? What's your value about family, your in-laws, and all of those things? Do you believe that they can always come to your family, they can always come to you, or you just want them to stay on their own? Okay, you don't need external people. Just like in Africa here, okay, we have extended family and they are also a part of nuclear family. So if you're coming from different cultures, ensure that you talk about your cultural differences, you talk about your belief, okay, and ensure that you guys align. But if it doesn't align, that you're willing to compromise your principle to accept that of your spouse. That's another thing to talk about before saying I do. Now the next, or the fifth one, there are so many, but I'll just leave it at 5. The fifth thing to talk about is your history, because sometimes our past may play a role in our present. It could come hurting our present. So if you have a certain history that needs to be talked about, ensure you talk about them, especially the ones that you feel may come back in the present. Let's say you have a child with someone, you have to talk about that child, because you know a child is not just something you can wave off or something you can forget. So talk about the child. If the person is willing to accept you and your child, good and fine, then the relationship will work. But if you do not tell your spouse or whoever, your significant other or your partner, that you have a child before marriage, and then they discover in future, you know it's going to be a problem. Or you have a medical problem and you do not divulge this information, okay? Or you have certain past with you've been married before, you're a divorcee, you have to say these things, okay? Ensure that you talk about it with your spouse. And when you're open, to talk about these things, it helps them to trust you more, and then they get to know your background, and there's no surprise. No surprise will spring up later in the relationship. So there are 5 things we have said now. We talked about your finance. Ensure you discuss money. Ensure you discuss location where you both will live. Ensure you discuss parenthood, okay? Parenting. Who shares what role in parenting your children. Ensure you talk about your history. Yes, history is also it can also come to play in the marriage, especially if you have a dark past. Talk about it, and then talk about your values and principles. Ensure that your spouse knows this information. so that you too also will arm yourself, and it helps you to know them more. It helps you to have a background knowledge of who they are, their personality, what they believe in, their value system, and then you can now say, I know this person and I'm willing to commit to this person on this journey of marriage. So I wish you guys all the best, as you say I do, knowing all this information and arming yourself with this information to help you make the best of your marriage. Thank you so much. Keep working on your relationship. From me, Ijoba Nwoke. If you find value in this information, give me a follow, subscribe to my channel, and I'll be here to give you more. Thank you so much. I love you, and be good. Bye for now.